And then Sapphire or Sabine, who wants to be host?
Is it possible to make us both co-hosts so that you can still have the host abilities?
I don't think so because I made this Zoom link in haste. So I wasn't able to get you in. So,
Okay, I can take the hosting
okay.
power.
Mary, will that ruin the recording if the host is over?
It should not. I don't know, but
We'll see.
we'll see. Looks like it's still recording. So if you want to turn off your cameras or mute your microphones, now would be the time. Like I said, we'll probably still have a couple more people coming in. But Sabine and Sapphire, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to talk about courageous conversations.
Thanks so much. I feel like I have so much power. It's good to be here with you all. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Sabine Denise. I use she, her pronouns, a social justice and equity specialist. I'll pass it over to Sapphire.
Hi all, Sapphire DeYoung. Good to see you all again. She, her pronouns. Thanks for bearing with us as we get things set up here. Since we do most things in person now, I think now we forget some of the things that it takes to go back to Zoom life. So we wanted to get started with a quick opening, and we were going to do this in the chat, but I think it would be better to do breakouts. So could we get breakout rooms host with the most?
I got you.
Let's do 4 people.
Okay.
And in case you didn't see the slide deck on the website, it's there in the chat, and we are on slide 2. And we just want you to connect with whoever Zoom decides you need to talk to right now at the opening of this session. Just share something that you're excited about from this year so far. We'll give you about 5 minutes or so in your group, maybe like 8 minutes, and then we'll come back together.
Did everybody see their room number?
You want to pause the recording while we are?
Yes, thank you.
I can share this just so that we can take a peek. This is what we're focusing on this session. This is our 3rd, I believe, session together, and it's much shorter than the day-long sessions that we've had, but we want to be able to focus on some specific scenarios that folks either shared with us or some that we have heard working with instructors before. So we're going to review this framework of anticipate, analyze, and act. And it's about thinking about how you can plan for conflict, maybe, so you're not sort of surprised by conflict or tension or silence. We have some scenarios that came from your group, a little bit of a self-assessment, and then we have some resources to work work with. Oops. And that's going to be our time. So it will fly by, I am sure. And Sabine Denise, I can pass it to you.
Okay. I don't think that's still you, Sapphire.
That's me
Would you
still?
like? Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go into this much because we saw it last time. But I think since we're on Zoom and it's dinner time, I'm just going to highlight the valuing shared humor and see what we can make of that together with each other today. And this choosing love-based responses before fearful ones. But these are the same community practices that we've been working with. And you have them here if you want to review them more deeply. And we're going to get into the tofu and potatoes.
I'm gonna say the rice and peas.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. Like Sapphire said, we're going to share a little bit of how you can anticipate, analyze, and act on conflicts that that will arise, that have happened in the past, and helping you think about how can you be more proactive in thinking about conflict. We've been working on brave and generative conversations. How do we, think about our self-awareness, social awareness, and thinking about what gets in the way of us having conversations, right? And we've had some really great sessions with you all, and thinking about that, like the waterline of visibility, and thinking about culturally responsive teaching practices, and thinking about how we can engage and lean into having these generative brave conversations. And sometimes that involves a little bit of conflict and surfacing some of the conflict. And so what we have here is this framework from Jen Schwenke. And we've been working with this framework with some leaders in a school district that we're currently working with. And it's really a framework that is, it's intentionally supporting leaders or folks who are working with young people, working with students, working with colleagues, and thinking about and working through conflict management with students, educators, your staff, your colleagues. And it really supports us in thinking about conflict as being something that's inevitable, right? And so when we decide to embrace conflict as a part of life, as a part of our experiences, especially within our roles as educators or DI coordinators or EL&Gers, right? Thinking about there's conflict that we're going to have to surface or that we're going to come across, that if we embrace as a part of process, as a part of life, it's going to really limit the amount of anxiety that we feel when we're engaging in conflict or when it happens. There are conflicts that we as educators or as folks working with students working in higher education can anticipate as the year comes around, whether it be thinking about school projects, what's happening in our locals, and what's happening locally, nationally, globally, impacting our students as they come into classes, onto campus, thinking about potentially biased or racialized incidents that are happening. These are things that we can anticipate based off of our own experiences, based off of what happened last year or the year before that. And we have the data that backs that up, right? And thinking about what are the kinds of conflicts that come up for students and come up in our schools. And so this framework is really about being more proactive and thinking about conflict and how we want to address those conflicts. Last time when we did this, we did forum theater, but we figured with the number of folks that we were going to have here, that may not be the route we want to take virtually. If we are in person, definitely, but definitely not virtually. And so I'm just going to quickly go through some of the three elements of this framework of working through conflict. So anticipate. What conflict can I predict? I just listed a couple of conflicts that we can predict and think about as educators, as folks who are working, as staff, as folks working within the colleges, right? What classroom norms, practices can I put in place? Thinking about those community guidelines and practices that you can establish at the beginning of a semester. or thinking about what are the values that we hold as a staff and how do we want to continue to make sure that we're aligned with those values, right? So thinking about what kind of practices and norms can you establish, right, as you anticipate what might happen throughout the year. You can look for patterns, right? If there are students that are speaking more or students that aren't engaging as much, right? And thinking about how do we bring their voices into the classroom? How do we support that engagement? As you anticipate conflict, knowing that it's important to affirm and empower our students, empower each other as colleagues, and empower each other as folks working within the college, and knowing that we can be warm demanders of each other and warm demanders of our students. That's a framework from Shane Saphir. I believe it's Sapphire, is it Leading for Equity, the book, or the Warm Demander Framework? You're muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know,
And so,
warm demanders from somebody else. Somebody in this,
oh,
other people in this room know who it is.
Loretta Hammond.
Doretta Hammond. Thank you. So thinking about that, how can we be more demanders of each other? Then from anticipate, you can think about analyzing, right? When a conflict happens, it's really thinking about how can you be curious about the conflict, asking questions, leaning into that deep curiosity. Sapphire, you can go to the next slide for analyze. Thank you, Fran. And so when you're analyzing and you're being curious about where this conflict came from, what's happening, you're asking, you're gonna check your state of mind, right? Where are you at in that moment, right? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling a little bit fearful? So doing that self-assessment and analyzing, reviewing the feelings of what's happened, the feelings of the folks who are being impacted or who are within the conflict, right? What may have been happening for that person 5 or 10 minutes or a day or two prior for that person, right? That could have impacted how they were in this conflict and the feelings that came up for them in this conflict. You'll also review the facts, right? You can hold both the feelings and the facts, right? And that's going to support you in holding a bigger picture of what happened and how to move through the conflict. You'll gather perspective, thinking about you can't just lean on one person's version of the story, right? If there's a conflict among students, or within a group project, you're going to want to hear from each person, right? You're going to want to hear from, if there's a conflict amongst colleagues, right? Or if you're a supervisor, you're going to want to support and hear from each person that is a part of it. And thinking about ourselves as EL&Gers, there's going to be issues of bias that may happen on campus. You're going to want to hear from each student that's involved in it. Discard irrelevant perspectives. Everybody might want to like have their piece in it, but if they're not involved in the conflict, it's really probably not the best to involve that perspective or that information. You want to listen. Listening is key in analyzing, because as you're being curious and asking questions, you want to receive what is being said. And then also thinking about how do you brainstorm a proactive response, right? And thinking about what can you do next and how can you support students to move through these conflicts. And then from anticipate and analyze, you'll have act, right? And so what are the things that you can do? Setting the environment, setting your intentions, acknowledging all sides and having like clear communication. You want to make sure to follow up with your students or have informal check-ins, and also following through on whatever it is that you have decided to do in terms of addressing the conflict. Sapphire, you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so these are just some of the bullet points for thinking about how to act, what to do as you think about addressing conflict and what to do in certain conflicts, right? And so we bring in this framework really for us to know that conflict is inevitable. It is going to happen, but how can we prepare ourselves and forward thinking or thinking about the conflict that we may anticipate happening this semester, analyzing those conflicts when they do happen, or even being able to analyze things for yourself and doing your own research and looking at resources, and then thinking about what are the different ways that you can act in those situations. And I'm gonna say that's what I have for you all as we think about that framework, and wondering if Sapphire, if you would like to add anything onto that.
Yeah, I think we're going to get you into, we're going to start looking at some scenarios, and we want you to be able to think about this anticipate, analyze, act based on the 3 scenarios that we kind of pulled together from comments that we received from people through a form. And I think we are encouraging you to do some like rehearsing of how you might handle some of the situations in small groups. So I'm going to stop sharing and encourage you to go to slide 9. And slide 9, I know that you have the, if you kind of hover over the bottom left-hand part of the screen, you can see the slide numbers. And slide 9 has the heading that says scenarios. So we have three scenarios here. The first one is kind of a focus on facilitating emotions, tensions around conversations related to racism and sexism, and of course has manifested in students mostly staying away from participation in discussions. The group is a mixed age, gender, and race. So you would want to think about, you know, what are the questions that you might ask? What are the perspectives that you might want to consider? You might think about the demographics of your class, what people have shared, what they haven't shared, and what you might want to try to do in terms of getting people to engage. And the idea is that there's so much wisdom in this room already that you have an opportunity to sort of just like talk with your colleagues and get to share your own kind of brilliant ideas based on the culmination of this course, all of the things that you've learned from the different facilitators. In the second scenario, challenging race and racism in the classroom. I'm not going to read all of these, actually. I'll just have you read them in your small groups. Sabine, Denise, would you make groups of 4 again, maybe the same groups, actually?
Sapphire, I'll have you make me the host again, but we're missing one step. We have to do the vulnerability, strengths, and needs.
Yes. You want to talk about that step?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, good.
But Sapphire so beautifully shared that the Anticipate, Analyze, Act is a framework that we're wanting you all to think about as you look at these scenarios. And so we wanted to give you just a moment to take them in, read them for a moment before we go into our next activity, before you get a chance to work on these together in your small group. And so in the chat, I just put in a link to a worksheet that we would love for you to do, just like us as a self-assessment for yourself. This will, when you click the link, it's going to take you to make your own copy. So this is for your own personal records. We won't have access to this in any way, shape, or form. But as you read the scenarios, we want you to look at this worksheet, which on this worksheet, you'll see that it has vulnerabilities, 3 columns. One column is vulnerabilities, the other column is strength, and the other column is needs. And what we would love for you to do is, like, as you think about those 3 scenarios, and as you think about conflict and addressing conflict, and even maybe some stories are coming up for you on conflicts that you're anticipating may happen this semester, this year, we want you to just assess where you're at and addressing that, right? And addressing those conflicts and surfacing them and having those difficult, courageous, generative conversations. So where are your vulnerabilities when it comes to addressing conflict or having these conversations, right? Where do you, and the vulnerabilities could be that I get really nervous when addressing things in front of my students and also thinking about my job security, right? So that's a vulnerability that's right there. We want you to also think about not only your vulnerabilities, but what are your strengths when it comes to having these generative brave conversations or leading into conflict and surfacing conflict. Like, I'm a really good listener and I'm open to hearing folks' perspectives, right? That's a strength. That could be a strength that you name for yourself. And then when you think of a need, what's something, where do you need support, right? And being able to lean into conflict and address conflicts with students, with colleagues on campus. And that could be like, I need more resources, specifically on what to say when this happens, right? So being specific with yourself and thinking about what are my needs. And so we want to give you just about like 7 or so minutes to fill out this worksheet for yourself and assessing where are you at, what are the vulnerabilities, where are your strengths, and where are your needs. And hopefully as you fill that out, you can, when you go into your breakout spaces, you'll be able to work through, look at some resources that we have, and hopefully those resources are able to address some of the needs that you're naming in this worksheet. So I'll give you about 7 minutes, to fill this out for yourself. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask out loud or send myself or Sapphire a question in the chat. And Sapphire, can you make me host? Thank you.
I have breakout rooms set up.
Oh, perfect. That's what I was gonna do. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna share a Padlet in the chat for you all. And I'm sure when you look at it, you're going to, some of you will be, or most of you should be familiar, will be familiar with some of the resources that are on here. These are resources that are to support you with those needs, right? Or in thinking about how would you address one or many of the scenarios that were listed on the slide. And so on this Padlet, we have different columns that will support you in thinking about how can we address, or what can we do to address the scenario number 2 or scenario 3 or 1, right? And so on this Padlet are resources. You have in the first column where it says start here, you'll have the making the most of hot moments in the classroom. And that's a resource that's a resource that really just goes through when things get hot in the classroom, or someone says something that's like out of left field. It's like, what can you do in those moments? Or like, what can you do to prepare for those moments, right? So anticipating those moments, thinking about what can we do as educators to prepare for those moments in the classroom. Go ahead, Sapphire, I see you want to say something.
And I think that's the only one we want to highlight right now. And the rest of those Padlet resources are there for you. We've kind of touched on a lot of them already, but we don't want to overwhelm you before you go into the conversation. So just that one sheet, I think, will be a support for you in thinking about this next piece.
Yeah, thank you. And the other 2 columns are resources that we have shared with you all before, but we've just added them if you would like to dabble back into them and thinking about how you would address the conflict. And so we're gonna send y'all off into breakout spaces for in groups of 4. And in your breakout spaces, you're going to look at slide 11 or slide 9, which have the scenarios on them. And your group is going to pick one scenario that you want to work on within the time frame that you have, which will be 30 minutes. You're going to choose one that you want to work on. You'll review the resource in the Padlet, the Managing Hot Moments in the Classroom resource, or any other resource in the Padlet that you think will support you all in responding to this scenario and what you would do. Then as a group, you're going to decide how you would address the conflict, how you would address the scenario, with the support of the resources that you're able to look at in the Padlet. And then you'll do some role playing within your groups. And it's really just for you to practice what you would say or how you would respond or what you would do if this conflict were to happen in your classroom or with you, right? And so we want folks to be mindful of the conflict that you're reading and that you're responding to, and the identities of the folks within those conflicts as well. Sapphire, is there anything that you'd like to share?
I just, I would say that to make room for feelings about the scenarios when you open in, because there's some intense examples in there. So this is, I guess, kind of a trigger warning, which we could have given you before you went to read it. But make space for that experience, please. Should we get going into small groups? Sabine Denise has the process there. We just have a few more minutes left from our time together, and wanted to see if there were any questions that came up or thoughts that people wanted to share that came out of your small group session. And we probably will have time for one, maybe two. But if you want to add something in the chat or raise your hand, we'd love to hear. Lynn, I see.
So when our group looked at the resources that were there, that were available to us to help with the scenarios, my question is, I'm hoping that these resources, I know Mary very well, but we all love the resources we saw there. So I'm hoping to see those resources posted for us.
Yes, the link is on the slide deck. It's the title of the picture of the Padlet. So you'll have that on the website. I'm sure Mary can put the link directly to the Padlet on the website, and it's yours forever.
Everything's on the website already.
Awesome, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions that came out from your time together that you want to bring to the group?
I just wanted to say thank you for the resources, all of these start here's and pieces. They're going to be very useful in helping navigate a conversation that I don't necessarily want to have at my high school, but that needs to happen.
Yes.
Go for it.
Yeah, would love to hear how it goes.
Of course. I'll share privately or publicly, either way.
Can I ask you what issues it is that you want to clarify?
Oh, yeah. So a colleague of mine, I teach at Holyoke and I teach at Westfield State. And this is at Holyoke. A colleague of mine is asking our 88% BIPOC population to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And they don't want to do it because they know that justice for all doesn't necessarily mean justice for all. And I want to have a gentle but courageous conversation with my colleague around that, standing up for the student, ironically, not punny, standing up for the students, saying, look, they do not want to stand, and these are the reasons why. And I think we need to respect that. I don't know. No, Holyoke High School.
Does everybody in the high school pledge allegiance?
We do it on the announcements, but no one that I know of actually stands for it.
Boy, I thought that had kind of, I didn't think high school still did that. That seems very
We do it over the loudspeaker, but no one stands for it. And I don't make anyone in my class stand for it. And again, I said this in a breakout room. I have a veteran coach, like a veteran who served in the armed forces, co-teacher, and he doesn't even make them stand. Because we both are of the agreement that it doesn't mean for all. So why should we make them stand?
Yeah.
Tragic, it's not for all.
It's also not, it's their right to not stand. They have a right.
This is a great place to be like kind of anticipating what the conversation might be, thinking about what are the different entry points for the conversation and how can you support the students.
Yeah.
Okay.
I told the kids out of 110% seriousness to take a knee. Like Colin Kaepernick did. And they're thinking about it because they don't want to piss off the teacher. They don't want to show disrespect to the teacher, but they feel like mad disrespected.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe she doesn't realize that.
I don't think she does. I don't think she does. This is not the first time students have come to me about that teacher. And so like I know this training is for college and my college life, but it still applies in my high school life.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's getting down to the first floor to be like, listen, we need to have a small chat. And I got to make it feel like she's not backed in the corner. I got to make it feel like she's not being attacked. I gotta like really be gentle.
Yes.
Because she is of an older generation where standing for the pledge means something.
And she's one of your students.
And yeah, she's one of my students in that moment. Yes.
Yeah.
But also standing for the pledge does mean something, and the kids are actually respecting that by choosing not to stand.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's a powerful statement. It's a protest. So the question is really like, do you object to this being a means of protest, or you know what I mean? Like, or do you just think that they're right to protest, that it's not a big enough issue? Like, where are you coming from? And share that perspective, and that could be really interesting. As a school board member, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I quietly decided I was no longer standing, and the board all stood for every public meeting that we had. And I told the board president beforehand, and I told the superintendent, and I said, I don't want to make this a big drama moment, but I am not going to be standing anymore. And you can like have conversations with anybody else on the board if you want. I'm not going to. I'm just going to quietly sit there and have my own little protest statement for that.
This is a powerful conversation to like be ending on, and I would love to keep having it, but it is 6:30 and I want to make sure that people that need to leave get the information. We put a feedback form in the chat. If you would like to give us some feedback, we would love to hear your thoughts. And then Mary posted the website again and stated here that she hopes there can be more of these conversations, or that this conversation can continue October 1st. So maybe there can be some follow-up at the Praxis Equity Community of Practice conversation.
Excuse me, where is the survey that we fill out?
Here, I'll put it in the chat again.
Yes, thank you.
It's also on the website. I don't know if you have a separate one, Sapphire, than what's on our website.
Whatever's on your website, it's great.
Okay. It's also on the website. And I'll be sending out invitations for the equity practice, and hope that you all can hop into that.
I think it's the second building down.
And we can further our conversations, and maybe we can hear how it goes with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes.
Let you know.
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
If I can't make it, I will absolutely email and like share the experience.
Yeah, I would love to hear how that goes.
Yeah, I won't leave you hanging. I won't leave you on a cliffhanger. Now I actually have to have the conversation.
Be
You're gonna
good,
have
be
to hold me
smart.
Yeah, I
accountable.
know. Now the pressure's on. The hard part is having the
Yeah,
conversation.
no, the hard part will literally be finding 2 minutes to go talk to this person because we don't get adult time at school.
Yeah.
Mm.
Take
I
care.
want to
Maybe,
thank
maybe I'll
Thank
send
you.
an email.
Yeah,
Thank you
really
all.
great.
Yeah.
Sapphire and Sabine and everyone,
Thank
thank
you.
you all. Please wear your pins. Be sure you talk to your colleagues. Come and join our community of practice. And Ashley and I will be working on a 3.0 as soon as the RFPs come out, and invite you all back for round 3 if we can get some funding. of
Great.
the
Thank you,
leadership
Mary.
development.
Thank you. This has
Thank
been a
you
wonderful
So much.
experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for the